Yo, what's up guys? Chase the Bro here, and welcome back to another Dark Souls 3 build video. Today I'm going to be showcasing my Poison and Bleed hybrid build. Since the most recent patch, a lot of the infusions have been buffed, so I thought I'd check out Bleed, and honestly, the Bleed infusion has actually got a pretty decent buff. A lot of the bleed rates have gone up. I'm not sure about the damage or the scaling for the weapon, but in terms of the rate of bleed, it has gone up quite a lot, and the same goes for Poison. So I thought I'd try making a hybrid of the two. Both Bleed and Poison both scale off luck, so you're able to have them combined in one build. And not only that, if you're using the Warden Twin Blades like I suggest you do in this build video, then when you infuse them with a Poison gem, they actually cause Poison buildup and Bleed buildup, so you're able to combine both in one weapon. Although keep in mind that the Poison infused Warden Twin Blades do some pretty pathetic physical damage. Then again though, I didn't create this build centered around physical damage. I created it to kill my opponent through the use of status buildups. So these weapons work perfectly with my build. Now I'm going to tell you the strategy for this build because there is 3 different weapons that I use throughout this video and they're all in my weapon slots. I switch between them on the regular. So I'm just going to start off by telling you the order in which I prefer to use the weapons. You're able to use them however you like. I begin with the Poison infused Warden Twin Blades, and I try to land the L1 L2 R2 combo because by that point they're poisoned. And you're now able to switch between the Guru Dagger and the blood infused Warden Twin Blades because now you're trying to specifically get the bleed proc up as high as you can, and both the Guru Dagger and the Warden Twin Blades have a pretty high bleed proc. When infused with the blood gem, that is. They both must be blood infused weapons. Most of the time you'll see me switch from the Poison Warden Twin Blades to the Blood Infused Warden Twin Blades. Just this opponent in specific I found a lot easier to fight with the dagger, so it's great that you have 2 different choices. If your opponent is great at fighting dual wield weapons and you can't seem to land the combo, then you always have the option of switching to the dagger. It does have a quick step, so I find it a little bit easier to get attacks off. It's just a lot faster when you're able to get the combo off with the Warden Twin Blades. Of course, there are daggers that have a higher bleed rate than the Guru Dagger, but they do not have poison buildup, whereas the Guru Dagger can have both. So for my build, seeing as it was a hybrid of the two, I thought I'd just stick with that dagger, and it worked out pretty well for me. This build was one of the funnest builds that I've ever played. I've never even used a poison weapon in PvP, so I didn't know how amazing it was to have them constantly losing health throughout the battle, especially when you have a build centered around bleed. If anyone here has played a bleed build, you know how annoying it is to have your opponent run away from you because they don't want their bleed meter to go up. It's super annoying when they turtle, and if they're poisoned, it doesn't matter if they turtle. Go ahead, you're losing health constantly, so it's a win-win for me either way. I didn't even think of how amazing these 2 types of builds would be combined into one, because when your opponent is turtling, the bleed is constantly taking away their health, and if they stay and fight, they're still losing health, although it's not as important if they're actually fighting with you. It's just a nice bonus, but it makes it so your opponent won't turtle away from you. It kind of forces them to try and take you out because they don't want to die to poison damage. Although I could see some pretty annoying players using this build to just poison and run away and just wait for them to die that way, but hopefully no one uses it that way. That's not the way I intended this build to be played. The poison is just there to pressure your opponent into actually fighting you and not turtling away from the bleed proc. There are some downsides to this build though. Like I said earlier, your physical damage isn't that great. It'll usually take you 2 full combos of the Warden Twin Blades to kill your opponent if you happen to land the poison one and then the bleed one right after. If not, it's going to be a little bit of a longer fight, but I mean, all around, it's really fun. I don't always want to be creating builds that just kill opponents really quickly. I like having some diversity in there. It's also really amusing to see how your opponent reacts because most times when you're fighting Warden Twin Blades, you're not expecting to be poisoned. So I've gotten some pretty funny messages, and people actually liked the build. They thought it was pretty creative, so that's always a nice bonus, right? I also forgot to mention that this character wasn't hollow, so I wasn't able to have hollow Warden Twin Blades and use Karthus Rouge, although I think that would have kind of ruined the feel of the build. I like that I didn't have to buff any of my weapons. They were all kind of preset and ready. But if you do have a hollow character, I suggest using them because you're able to have a hollow Cestus, which will give you an extra 5 luck. And you can put those 5 stat allocations to wherever you like, whereas I have to use them to get my luck to 60. Other than that though, the build worked out pretty well without being hollow. It wasn't that difficult, and I just didn't use any buffs, so it felt kind of cool. Alright guys, I know you enjoy watching my PvP matches, but I'm pretty sure at this point you want to know what the stat allocation for the build is and the equipment. So I'm just going to bring you on over to my stat layout, that way you can have a look at what I've created and you can tell me what you think of the build completely. So, yeah. Alright my bros, let's take a look at these stats. So it is a status build, right? So everything scales off luck. You're going to want to hit the hard cap of luck, which is 60. I was even debating going to 70, but because my physical AR was already so weak, I didn't want to take any points out of dexterity. And I have 40 dex because it is the soft cap, and any higher, and I was getting pathetic damage returns, especially with my infused weapons, so I don't recommend that. And other than the 60 luck and the 40 dexterity, the stat layout is really up to you. I have a high health pool because I know the battle is going to be long with these weapons. They aren't really high in physical AR, so you're going to be relying on the bleed buildup and the poison to kill your opponent. So you're going to want to not be very squishy. Other than that, the starting class for my build was the Mercenary, so I do have 12 attunement, which is kind of a waste, but not really, because I was using the weapon arts of my weapons a lot, so having an FP pool was kind of decent. And I wanted more endurance, but I can handle having 20, and I'm wearing the Prisoner's Chain to make that even higher, which also gives me a higher health and higher vitality, which is an added bonus, but it was mostly for the endurance. As for my weapons, I have the Poison Warden Twin Blades in the first slot, because landing the L1, L2, R2 combo does poison your opponent right away, and it also adds bleed to their bleed meter because it does have a bleed rate, right? And then you switch to your Blood Warden Twin Blades, which have the highest bleed rate out of all the weapons that I'm using. Not to mention that if you get the L1, L2, R2 combo off, it almost instantly bleeds them, so it's nice to have those in the second slot. But if your opponent manages to fight the dual-wielding weapons really well, then you do have the Rotten Guru Dagger, which has a pretty high bleed rate as well, and the Quick Step make it really easy to land your attacks. As always, I have a simple stasis to rebuild my FP pool because I do use a lot of it with the weapon arts of all the weapons that I'm using. I'm wearing the Sage's Big Hat, the Deserter Armor, Mirror Chain Gloves, and the Ring Knight Leggings because I like the way it looks, and honestly, if you had the Mirror Chain Leggings, I'd wear those instead. I didn't have them on this character, so my choices were pretty limited. I'm wearing the Ring of Favor +3 for extra health and stamina mostly, but the equipment load is nice. I'm wearing the Chloranthy Ring because I don't have a ton of endurance. Prisoner's Chain, as I explained, is really worth it. You get extra health, endurance, and vitality at the cost of like no absorption damage, so yeah. And the Life Ring +3 just furthers my health pool. There's no specific rings for this build. You guys can use whatever you like. Those are just my suggestions. They worked out pretty well for me. And that's pretty much it for the build, guys. Let me know what you guys think of it in the comments. If you enjoyed my video, like the video. It really helps out my channel. As well, I do really enjoy making build videos, so if there's any you guys would like to see, just let me know in the comments, and I'll try to read through them all and get to some of them as fast as I can. If you're just tuning in now, guys, subscribe for some more Dark Souls 3 content. There's a ton on the way. And as always, thank you guys for watching my videos. You're making my YouTube journey a really fun one, so thank you so much. Chase the Bro out.